Michelle Thimesch, today's guest, is the CEO of Crowdfund Mainstreet, a FINRA-registered crowdfunding portal. She operates with the goal of helping underserved entrepreneurs, including women and BIPOC founders. She will be speaking at SuperCrowd 22. She'll also share insights about her superpower. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe. Welcome to the Superpowers for Good show. Michelle, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation today. It's just so good to have you back on the show.
Always a pleasure, Devin. I love talking to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I like to think, and I apologize for this self-aggrandizing comment, but I think of us as kindred spirits, that in fact, you and I care about many of the same things. And so it really is fun to talk to you again. You recently had me on your show, your podcast. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be on your show. I'm so grateful. Why don't you just take a minute, just in case anyone here on my show, my audience, doesn't know about yours. Tell them a little bit about your show so that they don't, so they can track it down.
Sure. So my podcast that I do with my business partner, Jenny Kassan, is called Capital Insight. And we focus on talking to both sides of the equation, right? We talk to entrepreneurs who have successfully raised capital on their own terms. That's getting those stories out and giving people an opportunity to see how others are doing this, as well as talking to investors who are doing things a little bit differently as well. We like to have both sides of those occasions. And then we have people, fantastic people who are ecosystem people, such as yourself, who are aware of the work in the small business finance ecosystem and have creative ideas and things to say about that. That's the focus of the podcast. So we get a huge variety, really, of people on. Sometimes it's an investment advisor that's helping clients figure out what percentage of a portfolio to put into direct investing, or an entrepreneur who's raising capital.
No, that's fantastic. Michelle, I'm really grateful that you had me on, and I hope lots of people will tune into your show because it's very educational. You are the CEO of Crowdfund Mainstreet, an investment crowdfunding portal regulated by FINRA under the guidance of the Securities and Exchange Commission. This is a really cool thing to be a part of. Why did you go to the trouble of creating this tool for people?
A question I ask myself a lot.
I imagine there are days, right?
There are days. When the Jobs Act, the 2012 Jobs Act passed, I had been in small business finance. I was practicing law in California, and most of my clients were closely held businesses. And a lot of the focus of my work was actually transitioning businesses from one generation to the next or selling it to key employees. So we were always dealing with finance and capital. I became really interested in finance and all the different creative ways we could structure exits for our founders, things like that. So when the 2012 Jobs Act came along, I thought, this is so game-changing. This is incredible that we will now be able to open up investing in small businesses, direct investing in small businesses. We'll be able to open it up to everyone. Even though my client base was very high net worth individuals, it was still very surprising to me how limited sometimes the access to capital was, just because the marketplace was a very small ecosystem. So I was really excited. And then I kind of forgot about it as I was impatient for the regulations. As you know, even though the 2012 Jobs Act gave us the law, it took 4 years to get the actual regulations. So we couldn't
Maybe the
implement the
longest 4
tool.
years of our lives, right?
The longest 4 years of our lives. And I had been familiar with some of the, crowdfunding, the real estate platforms, things like that, and thought naively that there was going to be this huge shift in 2016, in May of 2016, when we got those regs, and people were going to flip the switch and do the regulation crowdfunding. And when that happened, I was mortified that there was nothing that looked any different. It was all business as usual. A lot of the hype and the early commentary around the platforms that existed and that were out of the gates starting were focused on really helping people to invest alongside venture capital. There was a lot of talk around, we'll teach you how to be a mini VC, and you can invest in these same types of deals. And while there's nothing wrong with that ecosystem for the individuals that it is a fit for, the vast majority are not a fit for that type of capital. So I was very disappointed. I then started asking around, who's really doing this? I did not know Jenny Kassan at the time, but very quickly her name came up. And we had a meeting, got together, and we were bemoaning the fact that it didn't look good for Reg CF. And since Jenny was, the person that wrote the petition with her intern, Janelle Orsi, to the SEC to open up investing to everyone, I was disappointed that she was disappointed in the results. So I was practicing law, she was practicing law, and we started thinking about, gosh, what would it look like if somebody who is values aligned with what we see the prowess of this tool as an economic development tool, really in its highest, best form, which it hasn't achieved yet, but and if you know anything about Jenny Kassan, you know that if you dare to dream, you're in big trouble. She's pretty much going to say, oh yeah, you should totally do that. So that was July of 2016. And by the following year, I was applying to be an approved platform.
Yeah. It is exciting to see that you did that, and now you're helping real entrepreneurs raise money. You have kind of a significantly different focus than most of the other platforms, which I think you outlined as a key part of the motivation. Talk to us a little bit about what makes Crowdfund Mainstreet different and how you're trying to serve, especially those that have the fewest resources.
Yeah, I have long thought, my background, my family was very entrepreneurial. My grandparents were entrepreneurs, my parents were entrepreneurs, and I grew up very middle class and thought that life growing up middle class, saw it as I became an adult, raised my own children, and realized that we really are losing our hold on our strong middle class. So I've always believed that the strong middle is what makes America great. And it's a tide that lifts all boats. We'll always have a segment of our population that needs more support. But if we keep the middle strong, then we've got resources for the most needy. So entrepreneurship, in my mind, has always been a path towards self-sufficiency, self-determination, the good old American lift yourself up by your bootstraps. All you have to do is work hard and you can get where you're going. And I started to see that just wasn't as true. as it used to be. So the platform, I didn't want it to be just another platform. When I raised capital to launch the platform, I was really careful about who I pursued as investors for the platform. I knew it was going to take a long time. I'll be honest, I didn't know it was going to take as long as it's taking. I think that if we know those things in advance, maybe we wouldn't do things like have children and launch crowdfunding platforms. But here we are. And
You've got some other stuff going on that is very mission aligned. Let's start first with your investor group that you have formed. It's similar to the little group that we have in my community, the Impact Cherub group. You've created one, Angels of Mainstreet. Is that what you call it?
right, Angels of Mainstreet. Angels of Mainstreet was born about 6 to 8 months after the launch of Crowdfund Mainstreet, when we realized that really platforms are intermediaries, right? So they're bringing together both the entrepreneur side and the investor side. And we wanted to make sure that people who wanted to learn about deal flow on investment crowdfunding platforms had a place to go. The lifetime membership for Angels of Mainstreet costs $100. So anybody can join for $100 and be a member for life. We ask that people commit to investing a minimum of $500 a year directly in a company, so not in a fund. Oftentimes, regulation crowdfunding offerings, which are one of the easiest ways to invest directly. And really were surprised at the different folks that showed up. We have people who are very seasoned professional investors who are working toward divesting out of the public markets, in some cases 100% divested out of the public markets. That's not super common. We still have the vast majority of people having assets in both the public markets and making direct investments. And then a lot of people who are coming to us looking for information, maybe they have a newly self-directed IRA and aren't really they don't self-identify as an investor, not in any sort of professional sense. So they're looking for some information. How do you break a deal apart? What do you look for? Those kinds of things. So the group gets together once a month virtually. We were doing in-person meetings prior to the pandemic, but this way we get to have a presence around the country. So we get together, and then oftentimes what'll happen is there will be an interest in a particular offering or one or more offerings on either Crowdfund Mainstreet or another platform, and there'll be individuals that want to go deeper and do some due diligence, even people who we do not require anybody to invest. It's all optional. But what we have found is that things like going through crowdfunding offerings, and I know you do that in Cherub as well, that it's a good way to teach people how to look at things that they care about. Can they find what they need? And most people will find, after looking at several crowdfunding offerings, that you get basically the same information. Some companies do a better job than others, but you get a lot of the same information. So it starts to become more familiar to people to say, oh, you know what I'm looking for? I would like to know, XYZ. Are they thinking they're going to be profitable in 5 years? Or what's what are they offering? How much am I paying for these shares if it's equity? What's the multiple on a revenue share debt? So because we are not cookie cutter, we're not a cookie cutter platform in the sense that we require you to have some off the shelf instrument. Fortunately, because we are business and corporate and securities attorneys, we like the idea of helping people craft an offering that's actually unique to them, and it makes sense for their business based on how they want to exit their investors. So those are the things that we use the investment club to do, to have those more in-depth conversations.
That's fantastic. You also have another initiative you've launched that's pretty significant in your new hometown of Baltimore. Tell us about Opportunity Mainstreet.
Yeah, Opportunity Mainstreet was born. The idea was actually born in California, but because of real estate prices, it really didn't pencil out. So, Opportunity Mainstreet is an economic development fund that currently has a project in downtown Baltimore. The idea behind the project is to bring together an entrepreneur hub, an investor hub. When we used to do events for entrepreneurs, we would always have one evening at least where investors would join the entrepreneurs and try to create connections and conversation between the two groups, and realized that that was just not enough, that there still was kind of an awkwardness, a shyness, just putting people together that we felt like were very values aligned. It was difficult to cram it all into maybe an hour and a half cocktail party or gathering. So the idea behind Opportunity Mainstreet is that we will have a thriving kind of hospitality business. We're taking it as in Baltimore, we've got a lot of makers. We've got a lot of makers. We've got a lot of food entrepreneurs, and they struggle to find affordable places, either commercial kitchens or retail space. So the first level of our 8,500 square foot, 4-story building will be commercial endeavors that essentially run cooperatively. The other thing that we're doing is we're pooling resources. So if you're a food entrepreneur in the city of Baltimore and you need access to a commercial kitchen, you need that to be affordable. You also want it to be a resource. So there's a big kind of farm to table movement here. Even in Maryland, you can get 50 weeks of fresh produce a year. It's pretty powerful and compelling.
Wow.
And there's a lot of work locally to combine forces on the parts of farmers. So that movement is here, but not being utilized as much as it should be because of the economies of scale. So one of the things that we can do by having relationships with dozens of entrepreneurs is to bring together the two groups, elevate the food scene in an affordable way here, combine economies for scale. And then we will also have in the upper floors of the building, we will be renting out, we'll have kind of a boutique hotel arrangement. And the idea is that we've now got space. We are renovating currently, but we've got space to host events and gatherings where we can really put together people who are enjoying shopping local, eating local, and turning them on to the opportunity to invest locally. So we are working with an organization called Wealth Builders here in Baltimore. And they're one of the few organizations in the country. I actually don't know of another one. I haven't done a lot of research on this, but I've looked a lot for people doing this kind of thing. And the executive director there, Stephanie Geller, is very focused on activating retail investors, teaching people what it would be like to invest directly in their communities. So taking, again, small amounts of money, that's the idea behind crowdfunding. We're talking about smaller amounts from larger numbers of people. But I think it's important to note that we need to activate different funders if we're going to change who gets the funding. And that really is in my mind, the best use of crowdfunding is to start activating people to pick what businesses are in their communities, pick what they fund, pick businesses that are aligned with them from a values perspective. I don't know if you probably get your news feed like my news feed, where every day you're getting a list of all the mega corporations that are putting money into the things that are really destroying the social fabric of our country, while propping up their images on the one hand, but doing things behind the scenes on the other hand with where they put their money. All of them getting to the point where we're losing customer service. When you've got that kind of power, you don't have to deliver. Remember when small businesses were actually good citizens in a community and had obligations to behave themselves? So, I think that those are the kinds of things that I look forward to coming back to our communities.
Yeah, great take. I'm so grateful that you're doing all that great work, but maybe I have to admit I'm selfishly very excited that you'll be speaking at the Super Crowd 22 in September. This is going to be such a great event, in part because you're there, but you'll be teaching a session on crowdfunding, investment crowdfunding for female entrepreneurs. I think that's going to be wonderful. Tell us a little bit about your experience with that and what you think about crowdfunding for female entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Women are special. Women are near and dear. I don't know if it comes from I went to an all-girls private Catholic boarding school. So I've been living in community with women since I was 13, and there is something special about really helping women step into their best selves, particularly when it comes to something like a small business. Women have a different set of mindset issues when it comes to raising capital. We focus a lot on helping women understand that the fact that you need investment capital is not that you've done something wrong. Women are cultured differently in our country about money than men are. So I have a special place in my heart for helping women who have all the skills, all the talent that they could ever need to do something, but they may need to overcome some mindset issues before they can really step into their full power. The other thing about women that has proven correct in terms of the regulation crowdfunding space is that women and people of color are doing better on investment crowdfunding platforms than in any other finance ecosystem. So about 70% of the time, a woman or a person of color will reach their minimum investment. That's the good news. So we do know that this tool is the tool that we thought it would be. It's going to be great for that demographic. The less good news is that they're still raising only about a third overall from their male counterparts. So we've got a ways to go. But those are some of the things that we'll be touching on and focusing on this showcase that we're really excited about. All the people that you have put together for this. This is really one of the most compelling events since this really began about 5 years ago, because I think the industry is old enough now that you've been able to work on identifying who really are all the players, all the different nuances, all the different kinds of offerings and platforms. So it's going to be probably the cat's meow in terms of this. So you won't want to miss this showcase if you have any interest in the small business finance world.
Well, thank you. I think it's going to be great. So we're grateful, very grateful, that Crowdfund Mainstreet has agreed to co-host Super Crowd 22. And So thank you. Thank you for doing that. But one of the things that implies is that people in your community can get a special deal on admission. They can get tickets about half price. So I don't know if you want to tell people how to do that now, but they can always reach out to you, right, to figure out how to get in on the Crowdfund Mainstreet super deal for Super Crowd 22.
And we have a code, anyone who, and maybe that can be put in the show notes for the
Sure.
podcast. Yeah, we can do that so that
Yeah, if
if
you're
you
okay with
use
me
these,
sharing that, I'll put it right in the show notes so people can
sure.
register with. So thank you, thank you. It is going to be a great event, in large part, because of the support of Crowdfund Mainstreet and your engagement with us. So we're thrilled to have you be a part of this. Um, Michelle, you have done some amazing things. Launching a FINRA registered portal is a big deal, and helping people raise capital on it, big deal. Uh, Opportunity Mainstreet, I mean, that's a huge deal. I am so impressed that you've been able to pull that off and make that work. Underlying all of that is a skill set. What do you think of within that skill set as being your superpower?
I am a very practical problem solver. I think that the analytical thinking from the legal training side is something that definitely helps sort of evaluate things. But I think just my nature is very, I'm a practical problem solver. I believe there are solutions to all problems. So for me, it's about communication, openness, and problem solving. I guess that's multiple superpowers, but I see it under the umbrella of really communication.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Can you think of an example where you use that communication superpower and problem solving skills to actually accomplish something that you're proud of?
Yeah, probably the biggest thing was really just the shift in launching something like this, having to go out. One of the things that I like to point out is that I'm almost always raising capital myself. I can't seem to get away from it. I seem to always want to, be doing something that requires me to raise capital, which I've been doing for decades. And putting that together in such a way to convince people to take a chance on a different kind of a platform. So that's probably one of the things that I'm most proud of, is being able to convince people that this tool has got more prowess than we are seeing. And of course, this was years ago, but back in 2018 when it was really new. So I think that was something that I'll always remember very fondly, being able to go to people that I respect, care about, and get them to sort of see the potential of investment crowdfunding, even though we have a long way to go, and ask for patience.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. Now, I want to ask you as a follow up, how would you coach people to develop your superpowers of communication and problem solving? How can they be more like you?
Yeah, actually, the transformational coaching piece is part of a service that is offered in the legal work that I do. And one of the things that is the most compelling is teaching people to do the opposite of what we're inclined to do. Mostly when we run into challenges and problems, we tend to step back away from those challenges and problems. And the power comes from a place of standing in that place of discomfort. And that's probably the single most important step. Any transformation takes work, but the very first thing that has to happen before you can transform is a commitment to change. So that commitment to change is probably the first step. If you can get there, you can get the rest of the way with the right tools.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I'm so grateful for your insights. Again, I reiterate my appreciation for your participation at SuperCrowd 22. Before you go, would you take just a minute and tell people how they can learn more about Crowdfund Mainstreet or Opportunity Mainstreet or Angels of Mainstreet? We don't want to leave anybody out. Help people connect with you.
Yeah, so all of those sites, Angels of Mainstreet, Opportunity Mainstreet, Crowdfund Mainstreet. There's an education section, a learning section on the platform. There's a video that helps kind of explain about us. So there's lots of resources on all of those websites for all those organizations, Angels of Mainstreet, Crowdfund Mainstreet. There's also a crowdfund. We have a local label platform called Crowdfund Montana that is a trade name of Crowdfund Mainstreet. So there's information there as well. And anybody can reach out. There's help buttons on those sites. If you want to send an email, you can get in touch with us that way.
Oh, fantastic. Again, Michelle, thank you so much for being with us. Thanks for all the great things you're doing in the world. We wish you all the success in the world in helping people succeed in doing difficult things.
Thank you, Devin. And thank you for all of your hard work and support that you provide through the Crowdfunding Professional Association, your podcast, your investor group. It's just really wonderful to have insiders who can help share information and educate people about this tool. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Now, let's do some good. Thank you for tuning in to the Superpowers for Good show. Twice each week, we host changemakers who share their impact, insights, and superpowers. Don't miss another episode. Subscribe today at superpowersforgood.com. That's superpowers, 4, good.com. Be super empowered. Get your copy of the book, Superpowers for Good, as an ebook, audiobook, paperback, or hardcover edition via your favorite online retailer. Interested in having me speak to your company, organization, or association? Visit devinthorpe.com. Then let's talk. Now, keep using your superpowers for good. Together, we can reverse climate change, improve global health, and eradicate poverty.